The grand ballroom at the Fairmont Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and white roses, the perfect backdrop for my cousin Miranda's fairy tale wedding. I adjusted my simple black dress, a classic piece I'd bought online for $30, and tried to blend into the elegant crowd of 200 guests. At 28, I was the family disappointment sitting at table 12, far from the action, surrounded by distant relatives who barely remembered my name. My father, David Kellerman, stood near the bar in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, holding court with a group of wedding guests. As the successful owner of 3 luxury car dealerships, he commanded attention wherever he went. His voice carried across the room as he gestured toward me with his whiskey glass. "That's my youngest daughter, Sophia," he said, his tone mixing pride with disappointment. "She serves coffee for minimum wage at some little cafe downtown. Such a bright girl, full of potential, but..." He shrugged eloquently. "You know how it is with this generation. No ambition, no drive to succeed in the real world." The wedding guests nodded sympathetically, their eyes flicking toward me with that particular mixture of pity and judgment I'd grown accustomed to over the past 5 years. My sister Victoria, resplendent in her designer gown, joined the conversation from across the room. "We keep telling her to apply for real jobs," Victoria added, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd married into pharmaceutical money. "With her college degree she could work anywhere. But she insists on this artistic phase." My stepmother Linda, Dad's third wife, nodded gravely. "It's so hard watching someone waste their potential. We've offered to help her find positions at proper companies, but she's just so stubborn." I sipped my water, couldn't afford the wine at these prices, and they all knew it, and let their words wash over me. 5 years of this. 5 years of family gatherings where I was the cautionary tale, the daughter who'd chosen dreams over security, passion over practicality. They only knew. My phone buzzed quietly against my purse. A text from my agent, Marcus Reynolds. "Disney just confirmed the trilogy deal. $45 million for 3 films. Congratulations, superstar." I slipped the phone back into my purse and smiled slightly. Tonight was going to be interesting. The wedding ceremony had been beautiful, but dinner was where the Rayall family dynamics emerged. I found myself seated between Great-Aunt Dorothy, who kept asking if I was still single because of my choices, and my cousin Blake, a junior investment banker who'd spent the entire salad course explaining why the entertainment industry was financially unstable. "The problem with creative fields," Blake said, cutting into his filet mignon, "is there's no guaranteed income. No security. No growth potential. That's why successful people choose traditional careers." I nodded politely, thinking about the voiceover session I'd completed yesterday for Netflix's biggest animated series. 3 hours of work that would net me more than Blake made in 6 months, but I kept that information to myself. Dad approached our table during the main course, his face flushed with whiskey and the satisfaction of being the center of attention. "How's everyone enjoying the evening?" he asked, his eyes deliberately avoiding mine. "Wonderful wedding," Great-Aunt Dorothy replied. "Though I was just telling Sophia here that she really should consider settling down soon. Time's ticking, and with her situation, she can't afford to be too picky." "Her situation," Dad repeated, settling into an empty chair. "Yes, well, we all make choices in life. Some of us choose responsibility and success. Others," he gestured vaguely in my direction, "choose to serve lattes to college students." The nearby tables had gone quiet, sensing drama. I could feel eyes turning toward us, wedding guests curious about the family tension unfolding over dessert. "David," my stepmother Linda warned softly, "perhaps this isn't the time." No, Dad waved her off. "Sophia needs to hear this. She's 28 years old, living in a studio apartment, working for minimum wage. When I was her age, I already owned my first dealership." He turned to the gathering crowd. "Do you know what she told me last month? She said she was building something big." "Building what?" "A pyramid of coffee cups." The laughter was polite but pointed. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, not from embarrassment but from the familiar frustration of being so thoroughly misunderstood by the people who should know me best. "The entertainment industry is just so unreliable," Victoria added, joining the conversation with her husband Trevor. "We've been trying to help her see reason for years. There are pharmaceutical companies that would love to have someone with her education. Real companies with real futures. Speaking of entertainment, Miranda, the bride, called out from the head table, "Has everyone seen Mystic Realms on Netflix? It's incredible." She held up her phone, scrolling through the app. The voice acting is absolutely phenomenal. Especially Luna, she's the main character. The actress who voices her is supposed to be worth like $50 million or something crazy. The conversation paused as Miranda clicked play on her phone. The opening theme of Mystic Realms filled the immediate area, and then came the voice that had made me a millionaire dozens of times over. My voice as Luna, the fierce warrior princess who'd captured hearts worldwide. In the shadows of ancient mountains where magic flows like rivers of light. Great Aunt Dorothy frowned. That voice sounds familiar. Blake cocked his head. Yeah, weirdly familiar. Miranda kept scrolling, pulling up behind-the-scenes footage from the series. The actress is super secretive about her identity, but she's done like 15 major animated series and movies. She's basically the most successful voice actress in the world right now. As Luna's voice continued from the phone, my voice, speaking words I'd recorded in a Manhattan studio just 2 months ago, I watched my family's faces with growing amusement. Dad was still talking about my minimum wage job, completely oblivious to the irony unfolding around him. The problem with Sophia, he continued, is that she lacks focus. She lacks the killer instinct you need to succeed in business. She's content to remain small to play it safe. That's when Miranda's eyes went wide. She'd been staring at me while Luna spoke and something had clicked. "Wait," she said slowly, her voice cutting through Dad's monologue. "Wait a minute." She held up her phone, replaying Luna's dialogue, then looked directly at me. "Say something," she whispered. The tables around us had gone completely silent. I glanced at Dad, who was looking confused by the sudden shift in attention. "Say what?" I asked in my normal speaking voice. Miranda's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. Oh my God." She fumbled with her phone, pulling up more clips. "Say, in the shadows of ancient mountains." I looked around at the circle of faces. My family, the wedding guests, all staring at me with varying degrees of confusion and anticipation. "In the shadows of ancient mountains," I repeated, and this time I let my voice carry the full power and resonance I used professionally. The silence that followed was absolute. Miranda dropped her phone. "You're Luna. You're the Luna. She scrambled for her phone, pulling up article after article. "Sophia, you're worth $50 million. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Dad's whiskey glass stopped halfway to his lips. Victoria's fork clattered against her plate. Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "That's impossible," Dad said finally, his voice hollow. "She works at a coffee shop." "Part-time," I corrected quietly. "I work at the coffee shop part-time because I enjoy it, not because I need to." Miranda was scrolling frantically through her phone. "Netflix just announced a spin-off series starring Luna. The article says the voice actress signed a 3-season deal worth $25 million. She looked up at me, eyes shining with disbelief. "That was you." I pulled out my own phone, opening my banking app and turning the screen toward them. The balance showing made Great Aunt Dorothy actually gasp. "But how?" Victoria stammered. "When? We would have known." "Would you?" I asked gently. "You've spent 5 years telling me my dreams were worthless without once asking what I was actually building." Dad stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is some kind of joke. Voice acting isn't. You can't make that kind of money just talking into a microphone." I opened another app on my phone, showing my agent's contact and recent messages. "Marcus Reynolds, CA. He's been my agent for 4 years now." I scrolled through recent texts. "Here's the confirmation for the Disney trilogy deal. $45 million for 3 films. And here's the Universal contract for the Cosmic Defenders franchise. $37 million over 5 years." The numbers were staggering even to me sometimes. But they were real, earned through years of 16-hour recording sessions, vocal training, character development, and building relationships with directors who trusted me to bring their visions to life. "This can't be real," Linda whispered, staring at my phone screen. Blake, ever the financial analyst, leaned forward. "Those contracts, are those actually real?" "Yes." I closed my phone and looked around the table. "For the past 5 years while you've been worrying about my career choices, I've been working. Really working. Not just the coffee shop. That's my side gig because I love the community and the regularity. My real work happens in recording studios in Los Angeles, New York, and London. But we never see you traveling, Victoria protested. We never see any signs of this success. Because I choose not to flaunt it. I gestured around the opulent ballroom. I drive a Honda Civic because it's reliable and environmentally responsible. I live in a studio apartment because it's close to the coffee shop and I don't need much space. I dress simply because expensive clothes don't make me better at my job. Dad sank back into his chair, his entire worldview clearly shifting. Luna, he repeated slowly. You're actually Luna. Miranda was still scrolling through articles on her phone. She's won 4 Emmy Awards for voice acting. And look, here's an interview where they call her the Meryl Streep of animation. I smiled at that one. The comparison had embarrassed me when I first read it, but I'd grown to appreciate the respect it represented. The coffee shop, Dad said suddenly. You said it was part-time. 3 days a week, morning shifts. I own it, actually. Bought it 2 years ago when the previous owner was going to close down. The staff doesn't know. They think I'm just another employee, but I couldn't let the neighborhood lose its heart. Great Aunt Dorothy, who'd been silent through the revelations, finally spoke. You own a business too? Several, actually. The coffee shop, a recording studio in Nashville, and a percentage of the animation house that produces Mystic Realms. Plus various investments. I paused, looking around the table. I'm what you might call financially secure. Blake, his banker instincts kicking in, asked, How secure are we talking? I considered how much to reveal. Forbes estimated my net worth at $87 million last year, but that was before the Disney deal. The silence that followed stretched so long I could hear the jazz quartet playing on the other side of the ballroom. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. $87 million. Give or take. I stood up, smoothing my $30 dress. Now, if you'll excuse me, I promised Miranda I'd catch her bouquet toss. As I walked away from the table, I could hear the whispered conversations starting behind me. Phone screens lighting up as people Googled my professional name, searching for the articles and interviews they'd never bothered to look for before. The bouquet toss was delightfully normal after the drama of dinner. I caught Miranda's roses, a good omen, she insisted, and spent the next hour being congratulated by wedding guests who suddenly found me fascinating. Everyone wanted to know about Luna, about the recording process, about working with famous directors. It was during the dancing that Dad finally approached me. He looked older somehow, as if the evening had aged him years and hours. Sophia, he began, then stopped. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Dad. Yes, I do. He ran his hand through his graying hair. I've been such an ass. All those things I said tonight, all the times I've dismissed what you were doing. I watched couples swaying to the slow jazz number, thinking about all the family gatherings where I'd sat quietly while being lectured about my life choices. You know what the hardest part was? I said finally. Not the secrecy, not even the judgment. It was that none of you ever asked. Not once in 5 years did anyone ask what I was really working on, what my dreams actually looked like, whether I was happy. He flinched. We thought we were helping. We thought you were wasting your potential. My potential for what? For being like you? For measuring success only in traditional terms. I turned to face him fully. Dad, I love what I do. I bring characters to life that inspire millions of children. I make enough money to support myself and others. I'm building something meaningful. Isn't that success? Before he could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I recognized. My Disney contact. Sorry, I should take this, I told Dad, answering the call. Sophia, it's Jennifer from Disney Animation, came the familiar voice. I know you're at a family event, but I had to call. The Luna spin-off series just got greenlit for a second season before the first one even airs. The network wants to discuss expanding your role across the entire Disney animated universe. I stepped away from the dance floor, trying to process what she was saying. Expanding how? Think Marvel Cinematic Universe, but animated. Luna would be the connecting thread across multiple series and films. We're talking about a 10-year plan, potentially worth. She paused. Well, let's just say it would be the largest voice acting contract in entertainment history. How large are we talking? $200 million over 10 years, plus back-end percentages. I nearly dropped the phone. $200 million. The number was so large it almost seemed abstract. I know it's a lot to process, Jennifer continued. But we need to know if you're interested in principal. Your agent will have the details Monday morning. Yes. Yes, I'm interested. Fantastic. Oh, and Sophia? Congratulations on the trilogy deal announcement. The industry's buzzing about it. You've really made it. After hanging up, I stood there for a moment watching my family through the ballroom windows. Dad was talking animatedly to Victoria and Trevor, probably filling them in on the evening's revelations. Great-Aunt Dorothy was showing other relatives something on her phone, likely articles about Luna. $200 million. The sum was almost incomprehensible, but what struck me more was Jennifer's final comment. You've really made it. I'd made it 5 years ago when I booked my first major series. I'd made it when children started recognizing Luna's voice in toy stores and theme parks. I'd made it when parents wrote to thank me for creating a character their daughters could look up to. The money was validation, but it wasn't the real measure of success. I walked back into the ballroom as the band started playing at last. Miranda grabbed my arm as I passed. I can't believe my cousin is Luna, she whispered, grinning. This is like the best wedding surprise ever. Will you sign something for me? I laughed, hugging her. Of course. But it stays between us for now, okay? I like my privacy. Deal. But Sophia, why didn't you ever tell anyone? I mean, we're family. I looked across the room at Dad, who was now listening intently as Blake apparently explained something about entertainment industry investments. Victoria was Googling something on her phone, while Linda showed Great-Aunt Dorothy pictures of Luna merchandise. Because, I said to Miranda, I needed to know who I was before I could share that with anyone else. And I needed to be sure they'd love me for who I am, not what I'm worth. The evening wound down with a series of awkward but heartfelt conversations. Victoria apologized for dismissing my choices, admitting she'd always been jealous of my courage to follow unconventional paths. Blake asked if I needed investment advice, then spent 20 minutes picking my brain about entertainment industry economics. Even Linda, who'd never shown much interest in me before, wanted to know about the creative process behind character development. But it was Great-Aunt Dorothy who surprised me most. As the reception was ending, she pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, dear, she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I spent the evening worried about your future when you'd already built one beyond any of our imaginations. You don't need to apologize, Aunt Dorothy. Yes, I do. And I need to tell you something else. She glanced around, then leaned closer. 40 years ago I wanted to be a singer. Had the voice for it too, according to my teachers. But everyone said it wasn't practical, wasn't stable. So I became a secretary instead. She paused, looking out at the dance floor where the last few couples were swaying to the final song. I've spent 40 years wondering what might have been. And tonight, watching you, you did what I was too scared to do. You followed your dreams and made them real. As the evening finally ended, I found myself in the hotel lobby with Dad. The valet had brought around his Mercedes and my Honda Civic. The contrast as stark as it had always been, but somehow different now. Sophia, he said as we waited. I want you to know. I'm proud of you. Not because of the money, but because of your courage. Because you knew who you were when the rest of us didn't. Thanks, Dad. That means more than you know. I also want you to know that I'm going to do better. We all are. No more assumptions, no more lectures about your choices. I want to learn about your world if you'll let me. I smiled, thinking about the Disney deal that would reshape not just my career but potentially my entire life. I'd like that. Maybe you could come to a recording session sometime. See what I actually do for a living. I'd love that. He paused as the valet approached with his keys. Oh, and Sophia? Next family gathering, you're sitting at the head table. As I drove home in my practical Honda Civic, my phone buzzed with text messages from relatives who'd looked up my work online. Photos of Luna merchandise, articles about upcoming projects, congratulations and questions and invitations to coffee. But the message that made me smile came from Miranda. Thank you for making my wedding unforgettable. Also, my little niece says Luna is her hero. I can't wait to tell her that her hero is my cousin. I pulled into my modest apartment complex, thinking about the choices that had led me here. The studio apartment I'd chosen for its simplicity, the coffee shop I'd bought to preserve community, the career I'd built by trusting my own vision of success. Tomorrow I'd call my agent about the Disney deal. I'd probably need to hire more financial advisors, maybe consider upgrading my living situation for security reasons. The practical side of success would require attention. But tonight I was content to be exactly where I was. In my simple apartment, surrounded by the life I'd chosen, having finally shared my truth with the people who mattered most. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And as Luna's voice echoed from someone's Netflix account in a neighboring apartment, my voice, bringing magic to another family's evening, I knew I'd done exactly that. 3 months later, I stood on the red carpet at the premiere of Mystic Realms, Luna Rising, the feature film that had launched from the series' success. Dad was my date, looking proud in his tuxedo as photographers called my name. "You know," he said as we posed for pictures, "I always knew you were destined for something special." I laughed, squeezing his arm. "No, you didn't. But that's okay. I did. And that, I'd realized, was enough."
My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 15 years, I poured my heart and soul into building Harrison Enterprises from a modest tech company into an industry powerhouse. When I started as a junior software developer, fresh out of college, old Mr. Harrison saw something in me that others missed. While most saw a quiet girl from a small town in Ohio, he recognized raw talent and determination. "You remind me of myself when I was younger," he told me during my first performance review. "Always thinking 3 steps ahead, always seeing possibilities others miss." Those words became my anchor through countless late nights, debugging code, marathon project meetings, and endless client presentations. Year after year, I climbed the ranks, from developer to team lead, then to project manager, and finally to Chief Technology Officer. Every promotion was earned through sweat, innovation, and an unwavering dedication to the company's success. Under my leadership, our software division transformed from a struggling department into the company's main revenue generator. I pioneered our shift to cloud computing before our competitors even understood its potential. My team developed the proprietary algorithms that would eventually become our flagship product, Harrison Cloud. But everything changed when old Mr. Harrison had his stroke. I remember that day clearly. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my assistant burst in, face pale. "Mr. Harrison, hospital. It's serious." The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, emergency board meetings, and desperate attempts to keep the company running smoothly while our founder and CEO fought for his life. Then came Marcus Harrison, the prodigal son, rushing back from his extended finding himself tour of Europe to take the reins of his father's company. I had met Marcus a few times over the years, usually at company holiday parties where he'd make brief appearances before disappearing to whatever exotic location caught his fancy that month. From day one, Marcus made it clear he had different plans for Harrison Enterprises. "We need to modernize," he declared in his first board meeting, dismissing 15 years of steady growth and innovation with a wave of his manicured hand. "Everything's so old-fashioned here." I tried to be diplomatic. "Perhaps we should review the company's current trajectory and success metrics before making any drastic changes," I suggested, sliding over a folder containing our latest quarterly reports. Our cloud division alone has seen 300% growth in the past 2 years. Marcus didn't even glance at the numbers. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," he scoffed. "Cloud computing? That's yesterday's news. We need to be in blockchain, NFTs, the metaverse." Over the next 6 months, I watched in horror as Marcus systematically dismantled everything we had built. He hired a parade of flashy consultants, each with their own revolutionary vision for the company. Long-standing client relationships were neglected in favor of chasing trending tech buzzwords. Valuable team members were pushed out, replaced by Marcus's former classmates from business school. Through it all, I tried to maintain stability in my department. I worked double shifts to keep our core products running smoothly while simultaneously trying to implement Marcus's latest, visionary directives. But I could see the writing on the wall. The final confrontation came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I had just finished a presentation showing how Marcus's latest initiative, a luxury NFT marketplace for digital yacht ownership, had burned through millions in development costs without generating any revenue. "These numbers can't be right," Marcus snapped, his designer suit creasing as he leaned forward aggressively. "You're just too stuck in your old ways to see the potential." "The numbers don't lie, Marcus," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "We've lost 3 major clients this quarter alone. If we don't course correct, he cut me off, standing up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "The only thing that needs correcting is you. You're the problem here, Sarah. You and your outdated thinking are holding this company back." I maintained my composure, even as I felt 15 years of dedication being crushed under the weight of his contempt. "I've given everything to this company, Marcus. Your father—" "My father isn't here anymore," he shouted, face reddening. "This is my company now, and I don't need some small-town nobody telling me how to run it. You're fired. Get out." The office fell silent. Dozens of faces turned away, pretending not to witness my humiliation. I slowly gathered my things, my mind already racing ahead to what needed to be done next. As I reached the door, Marcus couldn't resist one final jab. "Good luck finding another job at your age. Maybe try something more your speed, like teaching basic computer skills at the local library." I turned back, meeting his smug gaze with a calm smile that seemed to unnerve him slightly. "Thank you for the suggestion, Marcus, but I already have something lined up." What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 5 years ago, I had started my own company on the side. Atlas Industries began as a small consulting firm, leveraging my expertise in cloud computing to help other companies modernize their infrastructure. While Harrison Enterprises had my loyalty during business hours, my nights and weekends were devoted to building something of my own. Those basic computer skills, Marcus mocked, had attracted an impressive client roster. Under the guidance of my carefully chosen CEO, who served as the public face of the company while I remained a silent owner, Atlas Industries had grown into one of the most respected names in enterprise cloud solutions. And tomorrow morning, Harrison Enterprises would be desperately pitching their services to Atlas Industries, unaware that the worthless employee they had just fired was actually the owner of the company they were trying to impress. As I drove home that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from my Atlas Industries CEO. "Everything's set for tomorrow's meeting. You sure you want to handle this personally?" I smiled, thinking of Marcus's smug face and what it would look like when he realized the truth. "Absolutely," I replied. "I wouldn't miss this for the world." The Atlas Industries headquarters occupied the entire top floor of the city's most prestigious office building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the skyline, while the minimalist decor spoke of quiet confidence rather than flashy excess. I stood in my private elevator, watching floor numbers tick upward, mentally preparing myself for what was about to unfold. "Good morning, Ms. Mitchell." My assistant Emma greeted me as I stepped out. After 5 years, she was one of the few who knew both sides of my life. The silent owner of Atlas Industries and the now former CTO of Harrison Enterprises. The Harrison team arrived 15 minutes ago. Mr. Marcus Harrison is quite vocal about the wait. I smiled, adjusting my tailored blazer. Gone was the intentionally understated wardrobe I'd worn at Harrison Enterprises. Today, I dressed the part of a CEO who could make or break a company's future. How long have they been waiting? 20 minutes, Emma replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. Mr. Harrison has mentioned his important position approximately 7 times. Well, I checked my reflection in the brushed steel walls. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. The main conference room fell silent as I entered. Marcus stood at the head of the table, mid-rant about the disrespect of being kept waiting. His new VP of sales, Derek, a former fraternity brother he'd hired to replace our veteran sales director, sat nearby, fumbling with presentation materials. Several board members, including Thomas Chen, who'd always supported Marcus despite his reckless decisions, occupied the other seats. Finally, Marcus exclaimed, not bothering to hide his irritation, "Do you have any idea who we—" His voice died in his throat as I walked to the head of the table. The color drained from his face so quickly, I thought he might faint. "Sarah?" He choked out my name like it physically pained him. "Good morning, gentlemen." I kept my voice professional, setting my briefcase down with a quiet click that seemed to echo in the stunned silence. "I apologize for the delay. Shall we begin discussing Harrison Enterprises' proposal to Atlas Industries?" Derek dropped his presentation remote. Thomas Chen's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. But Marcus looked like he'd seen a ghost. This is impossible," he stammered. "You can't be. Where is Richard Stone? We're supposed to meet with the CEO of Atlas Industries." I sat down, nodding to Emma, who began distributing folders. "Richard Stone is an excellent CEO, but he reports to me. I'm Sarah Mitchell, founder and owner of Atlas Industries." I paused, enjoying the way Marcus seemed to shrink with each word. "Though you might remember me better as the small-town nobody you fired yesterday." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus had gone from pale to ashen, his designer suit suddenly seeming like an ill-fitting costume. Derek was frantically flipping through the documents Emma had distributed, his sales bravado completely evaporated. "This isn't possible," Marcus repeated weakly. "Atlas Industries is a billion-dollar company. $1.7 billion as of last quarter's valuation," I corrected him. "Though I suppose someone stuck in their old ways like me shouldn't brag about numbers." Thomas Chen found his voice first. "Sarah, all these years, while you were our CTO, I built Atlas Industries in my spare time," I confirmed. "Nights, weekends, vacation days, all while giving Harrison Enterprises my absolute best during working hours. Unlike some." I glanced at Marcus. "I understand the value of hard work and loyalty." Marcus's face flushed red. "If you own Atlas, why did you stay at Harrison Enterprises? Why work for us at all?" "Because your father believed in me," I said simply. "He gave me a chance when no one else would. I wanted to honor that trust, help build his legacy." I stood up, walking slowly around the table. "But you, Marcus, you took that legacy and treated it like a toy. You pushed out valuable employees, alienated loyal clients, and chased trending buzzwords instead of building sustainable growth." I stopped beside Marcus's chair. "Yesterday, you told me to try teaching basic computer skills. Today, you're here because Harrison Enterprises is bleeding clients, burning through cash, and desperately needs Atlas Industries' help to survive. Ironic, isn't it?" Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his mistake finally hitting him. "The client meetings you handled, the relationships you built. They're all moving to Atlas now, aren't they? I returned to my seat, opening one of the folders Emma had distributed. Not all of them. Only the ones who recognize the value of working with a company that puts their needs first. By my last count, that's about 60% of Harrison's major clients. You can't do this, Marcus protested, but his voice lacked conviction. It's not fair. Fair? I raised an eyebrow. Like how you treated the employees who built your father's company. Like how you dismissed 15 years of my dedication because you thought I was beneath you. I pulled out a document and slid it across the table. Here's what's going to happen. Atlas Industries is prepared to acquire Harrison Enterprises. The terms are non-negotiable. You can either accept our offer or watch as your father's company continues its decline under your leadership. You want to buy us out? Thomas Chen asked, already reaching for the document. Not quite, I corrected him. Atlas Industries will assume control of operations. Marcus will step down as CEO, effective immediately. The board will be restructured, and the company will return to the principles that made it successful under Mr. Harrison's leadership. Marcus shot to his feet, his chair clattering backward. You can't do this. I won't let you. Marcus, Thomas Chen cut him off sharply. Sit down and be quiet. You've done enough damage. He turned to me, his expression grave. The terms of this offer, they're more generous than we deserve. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said quietly. Your father built something meaningful, Marcus. Something that provided jobs, supported families, created real value in the world. I won't let you destroy that because of your ego. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal requirements. Marcus sat in stunned silence as his authority was stripped away piece by piece. When it was done, when Harrison Enterprises officially became a subsidiary of Atlas Industries, I stood to conclude the meeting. One last thing, I said, looking directly at Marcus. Clear out your office by the end of the day. Emma will show you out. As they filed out of the conference room, I heard Derek mutter to Marcus, Dude, you fired the wrong person. Standing at the window, watching the city spread out below, I felt no satisfaction in Marcus's humiliation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting what his father had built, about ensuring that good people didn't suffer because of one man's arrogance. Emma appeared at my side with a coffee. Was it worth it? Keeping Atlas a secret all these years. I thought about old Mr. Harrison, still recovering in his hospital bed. I thought about the employees at Harrison Enterprises who could now stop worrying about their jobs. I thought about the clients who would continue receiving the quality service they deserved. It wasn't about keeping secrets, I said finally. It was about building something meaningful, something that could make a difference when it really mattered. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. Marcus might have been defeated, but he wasn't done fighting, and what he did next would force me to defend not just Harrison Enterprises, but everything I had built. Marcus Harrison might have lost control of his company, but wounded pride can be dangerous. I should have known he wouldn't accept defeat gracefully. The first attack came 3 days after the acquisition. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Emma burst into my office, her usual composure shattered. Sarah, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to a major tech news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Atlas Industries, ACQUI, of Harrison Enterprises, NDRNVSTIGATL, for INSIDER Trading. The article, citing anonymous sources close to the situation, suggested I had used my position as CTO to manipulate Harrison Enterprises' value, making it vulnerable to Atlas's takeover. It was a clever angle, one that played perfectly into Marcus's narrative of betrayal. "Get our legal team on this immediately," I told Emma, already reaching for my phone, "and set up a meeting with the board for—" My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Thomas Chen. "Sarah." His voice was tight with concern. "Have you seen the article?" "Yes. Marcus's handiwork, I assume." "He's not just throwing accusations around," Thomas warned. "He's filed formal complaints with the SEC. He's claiming you deliberately sabotaged projects, drove away clients, all to devalue the company for Atlas's benefit." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same projects he ordered us to abandon, the same clients he alienated with his visionary pivots. "You and I know that, but perception matters. The market is already reacting." He was right. By afternoon, Atlas's stock had dropped 12%. Several major clients put their contracts on hold, waiting to see how the scandal would play out. Marcus had found the perfect way to hurt me, by threatening everything I'd built. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I had receipts. Lots of them. I spent the next week working with our legal team, compiling evidence. Every project Marcus had killed, every client relationship he'd damaged, every reckless decision, all meticulously documented. Emails, meeting recordings, financial reports, a perfect paper trail of his mismanagement. Then came the counterattack. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the hastily assembled press conference, cameras flashing as I took the podium. "Recent allegations have been made about the circumstances surrounding Atlas Industries' acquisition of Harrison Enterprises. Today, I'm releasing all documentation related to that acquisition, including evidence that tells the real story." One by one, I laid out the facts. Marcus's decision to abandon profitable product lines for speculative ventures, the mass exodus of experienced employees, the millions wasted on his NFT marketplace and other failed initiatives, each point backed by irrefutable evidence. Furthermore, I continued, I'm announcing that Atlas Industries will be establishing the Harrison Innovation Fund, a $50 million investment in emerging technology companies. This fund will honor the legacy of James Harrison, focusing on the principles of sustainable growth and genuine innovation that he championed. The reaction was immediate. Atlas's stock rebounded. Clients who had wavered reached out to reaffirm their commitment. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. 2 days after the press conference, I received a call from the hospital. Old Mr. Harrison wanted to see me. He was sitting up in bed when I arrived, looking frailer than I remembered, but with the same sharp intelligence in his eyes. A newspaper lay on his lap, open to an article about the Harrison Innovation Fund. "Sit down, Sarah," he said, gesturing to the chair beside his bed. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about building Atlas Industries, about trying to protect his legacy, about Marcus's attacks, and how I defended against them. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I always knew Marcus wasn't ready," he said softly. "I tried to teach him that success isn't about quick wins or flashy moves. It's about building something that lasts." He looked at me, a hint of his old smile returning. "You understood that, didn't you?" "I had a good teacher," I replied, feeling tears prick at my eyes. He reached for my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "The Innovation Fund, using my name for that. Thank you. It's your legacy," I said simply. It should help build more success stories. The next morning, Marcus made his final move. He called a press conference of his own, clearly planning another attack. But before he could speak, his father was wheeled onto the stage. James Harrison took the microphone, his voice weak but clear. "I've watched recent events with great interest. My son claims his company was stolen from him. He's wrong. Harrison Enterprises wasn't stolen, it was saved. Saved by someone who understood its true value, who protected its legacy when others would have squandered it." The room erupted in camera flashes as Marcus stood frozen, watching his last attempt at revenge crumble. "Sarah Mitchell," Mr. Harrison continued, "has my full support and gratitude. The Harrison Innovation Fund she established proves what I've always known. She understands that true success isn't measured by quarterly profits or trending technologies, but by the positive impact we create in the world." Marcus left the stage without a word. It was the last time I saw him in person, though I heard he started a cryptocurrency venture in Miami that failed within 6 months. 1 year later, I stood in the newly renovated Harrison Enterprises lobby, now a division of Atlas Industries. The building had been modernized, but we kept the core elements that made it special, including the wall of employee photos that Mr. Harrison had always maintained. "Ms. Mitchell?" A young developer approached, clutching a laptop. "I had some ideas about improving our cloud infrastructure, if you have time to look." I smiled, remembering another young developer who'd once nervously pitched ideas to a CEO who took the time to listen. "Of course. Let's hear what you've got." The Harrison Innovation Fund has since helped launch dozens of successful startups. Old Mr. Harrison serves on its advisory board. His health improved enough for part-time work. And me, I still keep my old Harrison Enterprises ID badge in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of Marcus's humiliation, but as a reminder that success isn't about revenge or proving others wrong. It's about building something meaningful, something that outlasts personal victories or defeats. Sometimes the best response to those who underestimate you isn't to prove them wrong immediately. It's to build something so significant that when they finally realize their mistake, it doesn't matter anymore. As for that small-town nobody, Marcus once mocked, she now runs a technology empire worth billions. But more importantly, she's creating opportunities for other nobodies to prove their worth, just as old Mr. Harrison once did for her. Because in the end, that's what real success looks like, not tearing others down, but building others up. And that's a legacy worth protecting.
Hi, I'm Michael Foster, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the sweetest victories. You see, in business, just like in family, the person you trust the most can be the one plotting your downfall. But they often forget to check what's really beneath their feet before they push you off the cliff. Let me take you back to where it all began. Foster Technologies wasn't always the $100 million company it is today. 15 years ago, it was just a struggling consulting firm my father had built from scratch. Dad was brilliant with technology but terrible with business. By 2010, we were 3 months away from bankruptcy, and my father's health was failing under the stress. I was 25, fresh out of business school, while my older brother James was 30 and already a familiar face in the local nightlife scene. Dad had always favored James, the charming firstborn who could talk his way out of anything. But charm doesn't pay the bills, and James's party lifestyle had already cost the company several major clients. I still remember that rainy Tuesday when I found Dad slumped over his desk, tears in his eyes, looking at our latest financial reports. "It's over, Michael," he whispered, his voice broken. "Everything I built. I'm going to lose it all." Something in me snapped that day. I couldn't watch my father's dream die, even if he'd always seen me as second best. While James was out spending company money at exclusive clubs, I started working 18-hour days. I learned every aspect of the business, met with every client, reviewed every contract. Mom worried about me. Michael, you need to rest, she'd say, bringing dinner to my office at midnight. You can't save the company by yourself. But that's exactly what I did. The first year was brutal. I restructured our debt, cut unnecessary expenses, including James' entertainment budget, and personally visited every major client we'd lost. Many slammed their doors in my face, but I kept coming back. Persistence pays off. By the end of that year, we were breaking even. James found it hilarious. Look at little Mikey playing businessman, he'd mock whenever he'd bothered to show up at the office. Dad's still going to put me in charge, I'm the oldest. I ignored him and focused on work. Over the next 5 years, I transformed Foster Technologies from a simple IT consulting firm into a full-service digital transformation company. We developed proprietary software solutions, expanded into cloud services, and built a reputation for excellence in the industry. The company grew exponentially. From $2 million in revenue, we hit $10 million, then $50 million, and finally crossed the $100 million mark last year. Our staff grew from 20 to over 500. We opened offices in 3 countries. Dad's health improved as the company flourished, but his favoritism didn't change. Every success was somehow attributed to James' leadership, even though he spent most of his time planning his next vacation. In family dinners, Dad would praise James' business acumen while I sat quietly going through quarterly reports on my phone. I didn't care about the credit. I cared about the company, our employees, and the legacy we were building. Besides, I had my own plans. What nobody knew, not even my father, was that I'd been carefully documenting everything over the years. Every decision James sabotaged, every client he lost, every dollar he wasted. More importantly, I've been quietly building relationships with our key clients, making myself indispensable to their operations. I also had another secret, one that would turn out to be crucial. During the company's darkest days, when we were nearly bankrupt, I used my own savings and taken out personal loans to keep us afloat. In exchange, I'd received shares. Lots of shares. The paperwork was buried in mountains of corporate documentation. But I legally owned 40% of Foster Technologies. Or at least I thought that would be enough to protect me. I couldn't have been more wrong. Last month, everything changed. Dad announced his retirement and everyone expected him to name me as his successor. After all, I've been effectively running the company for years. Even James had been showing up to work more often, probably sensing the change coming. The shareholders' meeting was set for Friday afternoon. All major stakeholders were present, including our board members and key investors. I prepared a comprehensive presentation about our growth strategy for the next 5 years. Dad stood up to make his announcement. I noticed James smirking in his seat, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad began, as you know, I'm retiring as CEO of Foster Technologies. This company has been my life's work, and choosing my successor was not an easy decision. He paused, looking around the room. But there's only one person who truly embodies the leadership qualities needed to take Foster Technologies to the next level. Someone who understands our family values and has the vision to lead us into the future. I sat straighter in my chair, ready to accept the responsibility I'd been preparing for all these years. My son, James Foster, will be taking over as CEO effective immediately. The room went silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. But Dad wasn't finished. Furthermore, James has brought to my attention some concerning irregularities in our recent operations. It seems that certain individuals have been making unauthorized decisions and potentially compromising our company's integrity. James stood up, holding a folder. I'm afraid my brother Michael has been operating outside his authority, making promises to clients we can't keep, and potentially engaging in unethical practices. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every accusation was a twisted version of the truth. The very decisions that had saved and grown the company were being presented as reckless and unauthorized. Therefore, Dad continued, as my final act as CEO, I'm terminating Michael's employment with Foster Technologies, effective immediately. The security guards were already approaching my chair. James's voice dripped with fake sympathy. I'm sorry it had to end this way, little brother. But hey, maybe now you can get a life outside the office. The room erupted in whispers as I was escorted out, my key card deactivated, my access revoked. I could see the pity in some faces, the schadenfreude in others. But they had no idea what was coming. Because while James was plotting my downfall, he'd forgotten three crucial things. First, those unauthorized decisions were all properly documented and approved. Second, my 40% ownership stake wasn't as buried as they thought. And third, well, let's just say that when you spend 10 years building a company's technology infrastructure, you learn where all the bodies are buried, sometimes literally. As I walked to my car that evening, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message to an old friend at the SEC. Then I went home and waited. Monday morning was going to be very, very interesting. Monday morning arrived with a thunderstorm, fitting weather for what was about to unfold. I sat in my home office, watching the clock tick towards 9 a.m. when James would be strutting into his new CEO office for the first time. The weekend had been interesting. Mom had called 17 times, leaving tearful voicemails about family unity. Dad hadn't called at all. James had been too busy celebrating at his favorite clubs. The photos were all over social media, including some questionable ones with the company credit card clearly visible on the table. I smiled, remembering how James always thought technology was beneath him. "That's geek stuff," he'd say, refusing to learn even basic cybersecurity protocols. Well, that arrogance was about to cost him dearly. At exactly 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my loyal executive assistant who James hadn't bothered to fire. Probably because he thought she just brought coffee. "It's starting," her message read. I opened my laptop and connected to Foster Technologies' internal security feed. Yes, I still had access. When you build a system from the ground up, you always leave yourself a back door. The camera in the CEO's office showed James walking in, coffee in hand, ready to begin his reign. He sat in a leather chair, my chair, and pressed the power button on his computer. That's when the show began. Instead of the Windows login screen, a video started playing. It was security footage from 3 years ago, showing James in this very office, making a deal with our biggest competitor to sell them our client data. The audio was crystal clear. "Of course I can get you their information," James's voice rang out. "My idiot brother does all the work anyway. Just make sure the payment goes to my Cayman account." James frantically tried to turn off the monitor, but nothing worked. The video kept playing on every screen in his office, but that was just the beginning. His phone buzzed. The SEC had received an anonymous tip about insider trading, complete with documented evidence of James' illegal activities over the past decade. His private email started pinging with notifications. Somehow, all his confidential communications had been leaked to the board members. Down in the lobby, federal agents were walking through the front door. I watched through the security feed as James's face turned from confusion to panic. He tried calling Dad, but Dad's phone was busy, probably because he was getting his own set of revelations about his beloved firstborn's activities. At 9:30 a.m., Sarah walked into James' office. "Mr. Foster," she said calmly, "the board members are requesting an emergency meeting. Also, there are some federal agents here to see you." James started sweating. "Tell them I'm busy. Cancel everything, and get it up here to fix these damn computers." Sarah smiled politely. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. You see, the entire department just resigned. They sent a company-wide email explaining why. Something about loyalty to the person who actually built this company." "What?" "They can't do that. We have contracts." Actually, Sarah placed a folder on his desk. "They can. Their contracts were with a subsidiary company that holds all our intellectual property rights. A company that, as of this morning, is no longer affiliated with Foster Technologies." James's hands shook as he opened the folder. Inside was a simple document showing the ownership structure of Foster Innovation Labs, the subsidiary I'd quietly created years ago. The company that actually owned all our patents, software, and client contracts. And I owned 100% of it. But the clients," James stammered, "have already been informed of the change in management. Most have already signed new contracts, directly with Foster Innovation Labs. It seems they prefer working with the person who actually handled their accounts all these years." The color drained from James's face as he finally understood. Every piece of technology that made Foster Technologies valuable, every client relationship that kept it profitable, every key employee who made it run. They were all loyal to me. He'd stolen an empty shell. The office door opened again. Two FBI agents walked in, followed by Mr. Patterson, our chief legal counsel. "James Foster," one agent said, "we need to ask you some questions about certain financial transactions." "You can't do this," James shouted, looking wildly around the room. "I'm the CEO. I'm in charge here." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Actually, about that," he pulled out another document. "The board just concluded an emergency meeting. Given the circumstances, they voted to remove you as CEO, effective immediately." "They can't do that. You own shares in Foster Technologies," Mr. Patterson corrected. "A company that, as of 9 o'clock this morning, has no intellectual property, no major clients, and no core development team. I believe the stock price reflects that reality." James lunged for his computer, probably to check the stock ticker. But of course, his screen was still playing videos of his various illegal activities over the years. As James was escorted out of the building by federal agents, his designer suit wrinkled and his face ashen, I sent one final company-wide email from my remote access. "To all remaining Foster Technologies employees, you have a choice. Stay with a sinking ship or join us at Foster Innovation Labs, where innovation and integrity actually mean something. Your jobs are secure, your benefits will be better, and most importantly, your hard work will be respected." Within an hour, 90% of the staff had accepted the offer. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. There was still the matter of dear old Dad's retirement fund. The fallout was spectacular. Within 24 hours, Foster Technologies stock had plummeted 70%. News of James' arrest made headlines in every major business publication. Tech CEO arrested on multiple fraud charges. Foster Technologies in freefall as scandal erupts. But I wasn't done yet. 3 days after James's arrest, I sat in my new office at Foster Innovation Labs headquarters, a modern building I secretly purchased 6 months ago. Sarah walked in with a familiar face. Dad's financial advisor, Mr. Goldman. "He's been calling nonstop," Mr. Goldman said, looking uncomfortable. "Ever since he realized that his retirement fund is worthless, I finished for him, because he invested everything in Foster Technologies stock. Dad had always bragged about having skin in the game, keeping his entire retirement portfolio in company shares. It was poor financial planning, but he'd never listened to advice about diversification. Now those shares were worth pennies on the dollar." "Your father is desperate," Mr. Goldman continued. "Mrs. Foster, your mother, she's worried they might lose the house." I leaned back in my chair, thinking about all the times Dad had dismissed my warnings about James's behavior. All the times he'd attributed my success to luck rather than hard work. "Set up a meeting," I finally said. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., here." The next morning, my parents arrived at Foster Innovation Labs. Mom looked like she'd been crying. Dad looked like he aged 10 years in a week. They sat across from me in the visitor chairs, the same model as the ones Dad used to make me sit in while he lectured me about real leadership. "Son," Dad began, his voice shaking, "I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I interrupted quietly. "You let James destroy evidence of his crimes. You helped him embezzle company funds. You were complicit in fraud that hurt our employees, our clients, and our shareholders." "I didn't know." He tried to protest. "You knew. I cut him off. You just didn't care. Because James was your golden boy, and I was just the backup plan." Mom started crying softly. I handed her a tissue. "But that's not why you're here," I continued. "You're here because you're broke. Because the company shares that were supposed to fund your retirement are worthless." Dad slumped in his chair. "Michael, please, we're family." "Family?" I smiled without humor. "Was I family when you let James take credit for my work? Was I family when you fired me in front of the entire company?" I pulled out a folder. I learned that dramatic revelations were more effective with proper documentation. "Here's what's going to happen. Foster Innovation Labs will buy back your shares in Foster Technologies at their original purchase price." Their eyes widened with hope. "But," I continued, "there are conditions. First, you both sign a non-disclosure agreement about James' activities. Second, you retire, quietly, to that house in Florida you always talked about. Third, you stay out of my business, completely." "You do that for us," Mom whispered. "Not for you," I corrected, "for the scared 12-year-old boy who used to believe his father hung the moon." He deserved better than what you gave him. Dad started to speak, but I held up my hand. One more thing. The money comes with a trustee, someone who'll make sure you don't gamble it away on another one of James's schemes. Monthly allowance, investment restrictions, the whole package. You don't trust us, Dad said sadly. You taught me that lesson very well. They signed the papers. As security escorted them out, Dad turned back one last time. I was wrong about you, son. You're a better businessman than I ever was. No, Dad, I replied. I'm just better at remembering who my real enemies are. 5 years have passed since then. Foster Innovation Labs is now a billion-dollar company known for its cutting-edge technology and ethical business practices. James served 2 years in prison and now works as a bartender in Vegas. Dad and Mom live quietly in Florida, sending occasional postcards that I never answer. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at my old business school. The topic? The importance of integrity in family business. I accepted with a smile. After all, I have quite a story to tell. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so successful that they have to live with the knowledge that they bet on the wrong horse. And as for those who wonder how the quiet one, the careful one, the backup plan pulled off such a complete victory, well, let's just say that while the peacocks are busy showing off their feathers, the eagles are watching, waiting, and planning their next move. Because in business, just like in life, it's not about who starts at the top. It's about who's still standing when the dust settles.